Much of Southern California, the San Francisco Bay Area and Central Valley have been placed under a sweeping new lockdown. The new measures, which include the closures of all bars, hair salons, barbershops, casinos and indoor and outdoor playgrounds, will remain in place for at least, most likely, 3 weeks or maybe even more. Blake Christian is a partner at Holthouse, Carlin and Van Trite. Blake, thanks for joining us once again.
Great seeing you, Mike.
Several states have imposed increasingly severe restrictions on small business since the presidential elections. Can you tell us offhand which states are affected?
Well, it's all the high population states. Most notably California, New Jersey, New York. I'm not positive on Illinois, but I suspect they are too. A common theme: they're all Democratic governors.
Are small businesses in these states being more harshly treated than big business?
Oh, absolutely. The little corner markets closed. Restaurants closed, but big retail, big box retail open, and so Targets and Costco's, etc., are all open. There's really not a lot of rhyme or reason. There's always this talk of we're relying on the science, but there's really no science to support a lot of their positions.
What about the business groups and chambers established to help their members? Are they complaining loudly enough to government?
It's interesting. I do a lot of consulting and presentations with Anaheim Chamber of Commerce, which is where Disneyland is located, and that city is probably the most dependent on hospitality of any city in California. Plus, the Angels baseball team plays there, so they just been decimated, and again it's just so frustrating because so many people are out of work. I can kind of understand maybe Disneyland, but a lot of the restaurants, the retailers, they shouldn't be shut down, and they could certainly open Disneyland with low limits on attendance and things, and standing in line, spatially separated, but they're just taking this hard line. It's very illogical.
What about though the chambers? We don't hear a whole lot coming from the business chambers anymore. They've and especially over the election period when the Donald and the Joe were up against each other. Why are they so quiet? I mean, is there a change of attitude from the chambers to business itself?
Again, the Anaheim Chamber has been extremely vocal and definitely challenges the edicts coming from Sacramento. But others, I agree with you. They could be a lot more vocal. I have not heard the U.S. Chamber of Commerce really, saying anything about these lockdowns. And again, in Los Angeles County, they're shutting down all these restaurants. And then when they looked at the statistics, which we're supposed to look at the science, right? Mm-hmm. And 2.3% of all cases were attributable to restaurants, and 4 times that related to government office buildings. And they're not. I understand government office buildings are essential services, but it's just insane to shut down all of these restaurants that so many. They're just small businesses. People have their life savings in there. It's just a tragedy.
What immediate and longer term impacts will the restrictions have on large economies such as California?
Well, again, California, it's dependent a lot on being a tourist state. So, international travels, shut down tremendously. And these businesses, they do not have the wherewithal to bounce back. And so, you're hearing reports that, 40, 50, 60% of these small businesses and restaurants will never reopen. And I'm part owner in a restaurant in Long Beach, and I can tell you, we have some staying power, but most of these other small guys, they have no reserve, and that's going to also just leave these employees unemployed for years. It's a really sad situation.
Many states are not locking down. The impact on the whole US economy may be less significant, but what it does do, it creates this uneven playing field, doesn't it? If you have California locked down and another state not locked down, well, the one that's not locked down continues on, and California, it just slips deeper and deeper into debt.
Right. And that's what's happening is it's a vicious circle, because then they jump on a plane or get in their car and drive to some other state, or actually it's even county. They'll drive from one county to another and go to their restaurants, which are open. Orange County sits right next to LA County, and a lot of my friends, they say they're going out, and I said, "You must be going to Orange County," and they said, "Yep." And so it's this redistribution of wealth within the state, and then also amongst states. So it's having a lot of unintended consequences, and just further frustrating the whole business community, especially the poor small guys.
Mm. Do you have many small business clients who are affected by the lockdowns?
Fortunately, our client base, is larger clients, and they've actually fared much better than some. But I have a lot of friends that are small business owners, and know other CPAs that have that as their main client base, and it's been devastating, not only to the core business, but all their suppliers and things too. You've got the suppliers of meats and fish, and it's all of those have had just massive downturns. It's terrible.
Lockdowns are depressing and economically devastating. 2/3 of the US live paycheck to paycheck. Business confidence, how's that, do you think, these days? I mean, California must be just at an all-time low.
Yeah, you talk to these business owners, and it's at first it was worry, but it's kind of moved from frustration to rage with, they just feel like the political leaders are doing so much of this, based on, an ideology, rather than, really trying to protect the people. There's no doubt there's a spike in cases, but also there's a lot of that is because there's so much more testing, and the death rate, though, has fallen through the floor. It's I think probably 1/4 the rate it was back when this started, because they know how to properly ventilate and get these people back on their feet. At first, it was a real uncertain how to handle the patient.
Wonderful way to control the people, though, isn't it? By fear. And if a government was looking at a way to control their constituents, this is about the perfect remedy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, it's a head scratcher exactly what some of these states and cities, what their end game is, because it's again, they're cutting their own throat. They're not, their tax revenues are down. You know, the occupancy tax on hotels, all of that is really, really bad for the city county budgets. And the only thing I can think of is they think Biden is going to write them massive checks, and so it's just a short-term play. But I don't. You know, the Republicans aren't going to given a blank check, to Biden to do this. There are some checks and balances in our system.
The runoffs in Georgia be very important because of that very reason. If the Dems win those 2 seats there, Biden or Obama, who's the puppet master, and Kamala and all the other somewhat wackos behind the scenes, they're going to control the whole kit and caboodle. So therefore, whatever happens, they could write a very big check out or some very big checks, and we'll just put up tax. And that's always a fear too, isn't it?
Yeah, if we lose those 2 seats in Georgia, it's game over. It's going to be a very different America. But I'm pretty confident with the makeup of the Georgia voters and the various candidates that they're not going to win both of those. And I think there's a decent chance that the Republicans will win both of those. In raw votes, both of the Republicans, had the most votes. They just did not get over 50%, which is a strange requirement and a silly requirement, I think, in Georgia. It's a very unusual threshold that you have to beat.
Did you see the Trump rally on TV? I have a real problem. I mean, this guy is like a rock star. I mean, he just draws out hundreds of thousands of people, and if you transfer that across just to the general populace, you would have thought if the election was fair and there was no alleged fraud happening, and that Dominion wasn't playing tricks, allegedly, of course, you would have thought that he would have, there was no blue wave, it was a big giant red wave that got bigger.
Well, obviously the House results support exactly what you said. And while I totally understand that a lot of people do not like Trump, it is very counterintuitive, the lack of enthusiasm for Biden, the early results on election night, the closing of many counts for several hours. It's all very odd, and the whole Dominion machinery and just very strange. There's just a lot of inconsistencies. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this one's hard to figure out.
What's the latest, Blake, on the economic relief package being negotiated by Congress, and who will it help?
Well, it looks like it's moving at a pretty good pace. There's some. Yesterday I heard that there's a possibility that we could have a bill by the end of the week, Friday. But it's a little under $1 trillion. I think $982 billion. So it's closer to what the Republicans have been pushing for versus the Democrats. And the whole reason the Republicans were nixing the prior bill was that there were just hundreds of billions of dollars going to these states and a lot of programs that weren't even COVID related, and they were just bailing out states that had deficits long before COVID hit. So there just need to be a little more fair play, and I think we're going to get there.
Interesting. Of course, those states would have been Democrat states. Why? I mean, why are the Democrat states always in trouble financially? Is it just poor management, or they're doing too much of the do-gooders? The halo is shining brightly, or are they just incompetent?
It's kind of the tax and spend mentality, and so they have all these unfunded programs, and then they dig themselves into a hole, and then they their normal game plan is, let's tax the rich. And that's not a hard thing to convince. If 3/4 of the population is not making a lot of money, it's real easy to say, hey, let's tax these guys. Aren't you jealous? And they're not pointing out that a lot of those people are the job makers. They're creating businesses. They're putting their savings at risk to start a business or expand it. And they're an easy mark. And that's what's happening in California. Just this vicious circle of them digging themselves in a hole, and then having their hand out, and then you have the voters say, yeah, that doesn't affect me. Let's get more money out of them, and we can have more programs, or fix this deficit shortage. So.
Well, most businesses shut down receive funding support from their state government, or does it fall to the feds?
Yeah, really. The states are very seldom coming up with their own funds. All these CARES Act money it's a federal program, and then sprinkled down to the states, and so some of that money was redistributed at the state level. But the states aren't leading by example and saying, hey, because most of them, especially these blue states, are not. They don't have savings, so they can't go in there and dig out of their own coffers and help these businesses. So, and that's what a lot of them are doing right now. These city mayors are saying, oh, I'm going to give, in Long Beach, where I have an office, saying, oh, we're going to give $10 million to the restaurants since we've decimated them, but it's only going to come if the feds pass this bill. So everybody, write to your senator and congressperson to make sure they pass this bill. So it's just, it's other people's money. So they don't, that's the problem. They don't understand how business works and earning it yourself. And when it's somebody else's money, it's real easy to throw around.
California, described by one business man last week, in fact, 2 weeks ago, sorry, said that it was a communist state, which, interesting comment, because the guy has done very well in business. Socialist, Hawaii used to be the most socialist state in the Union. California took that mantle, ran itself into the ground. We need some money, but we can do all these great social programs. We need the money, haven't got any. But now you see for businesses to be describing it as a communist state, which is pretty scary, because others must also be thinking the same thing. Looking at the running of the state of California, but even the food bowl you have in Central California, over the years you can see how the water has just gone. It's just been decimated, and now you're looking at this great, from the satellite photos. Once it was green, then it got a bit brown, and now it's almost showing yellow. Gets back to the original question before: are the Democrats just purely incompetent in running a state? Because business is failing, your natural resources are failing, you get the bushfires because, we mustn't clean the undergrowth. Well, that's what they've been doing for hundreds, thousands of years, and they decided to change the way we're going to do this. We're going to look after Mother Nature. So they're failing on all counts, and it's pretty depressing, isn't it?
It is, and it's sad to see these people lose their farms, and just because they didn't want some fish to have some risk of dying. It's really sad. There needs to be, our legal system. It's so easy to block things, and it's it costs millions, tens of millions, and it ruins livelihoods. We just see it every single day. And so there needs to be, I don't know. I mean, it was a wonderful state for so many decades, centuries, in fact, and it's just gone really downhill. And you pretty much have a super majority of Democrats in the legislature there, and so really, the Republicans have no voice there anymore.
Just terrific. Where do you see California heading? I mean, if they keep going the way they're at.
Interestingly, I think there is beginning to be a little bit of a backlash. I don't know the exact number, but there were a number of House seats that were taken from Democrats. I know it was at least 4, but I think it may be more like 8. That just, we just haven't seen that in the last 20 years. So I think that shows there's people that are getting fed up. I think the social unrest and things is even taking the moderate Democrats and saying, gee, we need a little bit of law and order here. We can't have, just, everybody, operating without any rules. And so that's what happens. Things go too much of an extreme, and then people wake up. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that. But it's going to take 10 or 20 years before there's any, noticeable swing to conservatism there.
Just finally, it's always good to see the leaders of the states or the communities. We have Newsom, of course, heading down for science purposes only, of course, and heading down to the French Laundry because it was, again, to show you what not to do. You even had in Long Beach, there was an official there that said you must lock down. It's social distancing, no outdoor eating, none of this. And then she popped down to a restaurant in Santa Monica because she was being very kind, and she wanted to go down there personally to tell that restaurant that they're going to be shut down for 3 weeks at least. And then you have in Austin, in Texas, the mayor via a pre-recorded message saying that you must not leave Austin. You must stay in your homes. Whatever you do, don't leave your house in Austin. And the guy had taken a private jet and flown down to Cabo. So it's more of what, do as we say and not what we do. And that gets back to the whole thing. It's not science, a lockdown. It's just your person, or it's just the government in charge of that particular community. It's their direction of control.
Right, and so many of these people ended up getting COVID as a result of that, which I thought was, maybe fair result. The Colorado governor, he left and went to Thanksgiving and then came back and had it. And then Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, her partner got it after, and she's just every night, talking about how, people need to be masked up and things. And I'm just curious, you would have thought that there would have been some announcement of, for everybody else's benefit, this is how my, my partner got COVID,
Good to see the dream still alive, Blake. The democracy, or the Democrats, the dream, hypocrisy. It's what we all aim for. It's the great dream, and then to get away with it. Blake Christian from Holthouse, Carlin and Van Tripe. Before we go, if somebody wants to get hold of you to talk about business or other things, elks, or how deep the snow should be, but it's not, climate change, of course, how do they do that?
So our firm our website is www.hcvt.com, or you can just Google Blake Christian CPA, and you can get to me that way.
Blake Christian, thank you very much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.